What's up, guys? Bethany Hedloff here, coming to you from my studio office. Today we have another new segment for you, Auction Talk with Steffes Group, featuring Max Steffes. Once a month, he'll sit down with our friends at the KFGO radio station right here in Fargo, North Dakota. And they'll be talking about anything from new technology in the auction business, farm industry, construction industry, really anything, because every month it'll be a new topic. But this episode is going to be about auctions then and now, comparing and contrasting what it took to run an auction or just be at one 40, 50, 60 years ago versus how we do things now. And he'll be joined by a very special guest, his grandpa, our founder, Bob Steffes, who'll be able to give us a better glimpse into how he did things back when he started in 1960.
I'm Rusty Halvorson. We've got Max Steffes in studio, a third-generation auctioneer with Steffes Group. Max, welcome to the studio. And we also have a very special guest today, too, Bob Steffes. Max, first, welcome to the studio.
Yeah, thanks, Rusty. We're excited about this program and hope to share some news and information with you folks. And today we're contrasting then and now.
Yeah, and Bob, you got your start with Steffes Auctioneers. You began it in 1960, now known as Steffes Group.
3,500.
How about 32 and a half?
32 and a half. I'll tell you
Did I have
what,
a new
we're
home?
right here.
Yes.
32 and a half. Now 35. Hey, here, down 35.
When you're an auctioneer, you've got to learn from somewhere. Where did you go to auctioneer school?
I went to Reach at Mason City, Iowa in 1959. Yeah.
Okay. And started the business back in 1960?
Yep. The spring of 1960. Yeah.
Max, where did you go to auctioneer school at?
Mason City Worldwide College of Auctioneering. They send you down there. They teach you how to count for a week, and they send you back home.
Okay, now the theme of today's show, then versus now, and we've come up with some ideas that, you know, Bob, when you started in the business, might be different from Max, what we're doing in today's environment. But Bob, I want to ask you first off, what is the worst weather that you have ever performed an auction in?
Snow and wind. Yeah. Oh, we did one up in Thief River Falls one time, and it stormed all day.
Yeah.
And I asked the owner, I said, we can pick a better day. I'm having this auction today. And by God, nobody left. We just went ahead. But it was cold, and it was snowy. I had trouble getting home. It was all of those things.
Yeah. You know, Max, we talked with your dad, Scott, throughout the week. And one of the things that we kind of joke about on the air is, you know, it might be really hot today, it might be rainy today, it might be snowy today. But for those online auctions, you can bid anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, we talk about then and now, and of course then the weather was much more mission critical. We didn't have technology that we could leverage in instances where we had snow events and what have you. So when we talked about a blizzard, I suppose in Grandpa's day, that was much more of a anxiety-inducing conversation. In today's world, it seems like it doesn't affect things whatsoever.
Let's get to some of the talking points when it comes to then versus now. Bob, when you started in the business, Max and I were talking about, you didn't need to register for an auction. You didn't need a bidding card. It seems like you knew everybody probably by their face and by their first name.
Well, no, I developed a system where somebody told me double images is always good for the memory. So I would always have a pencil and a pad, and I would sell an item to somebody, and they'd give their name, and I would write the name down, and I would hear it, and then I would see it. And I had a good enough memory. So pretty soon, everybody thought I knew everybody, when I really didn't, you know. But it was a good system. I used it for years. And, you know, there was nobody registering, nobody to rely on, because nobody registered. You just go out and call the name. So it worked well for me.
Now, Max, in today's environment, we do have registration. We have bidder cards. We've got online and sometimes in person, online at the same time. But the registration process is pretty easy. And does it kind of protect everyone, both the seller and the buyer and just everybody involved, when you do have a registered bidder?
Well, it helps to know where the gentleman or the lady gets their mail, and of course, in terms of contacting them if there's an issue after the fact. And in today's world, of course, with clerking technology, we have their name, address, telephone number. A lot of times they're already registered in our system, and we compile all that information and have that ready. for us. And on the internet side of things, they're already registered on our website, and we capture all that information. So quite a bit different from the days when you would say sold and you'd have to know the guy's name because he didn't have a bidder number.
Yeah. When you talk about mailing addresses, Bob, back in the day, when you wanted to get a hold of someone or they wanted to get a hold of you, was mail generally the first way to talk to somebody? Because
it was mail and telephone. We had telephone. We didn't have cell phone. We didn't have laptops, but we did have telephone. And a lot of the early business that I booked, it would usually be a phone call. I'm thinking about an auction. Can you come out and see me? Mm-hmm. And the rest was up to me to convince them that I was the guy to do it.
Yeah. When it came to lead time back in the day, how soon would somebody contact you if they wanted to have an auction sale in the prime season? When did those discussions start?
3 weeks before their wanted date. They'd say, I want to have an auction on 30th of March. I'd want to be talking to them in the first week of March.
Okay.
And set it up. And that's pretty much the system that I use.
Yeah, okay. Now, I want to talk about the technology that we use to get the word out about auctions, because obviously that's a big part of the equation for a successful auction sale. These days, Max, how far out do you encourage people to get a hold of you? Because there are more facets involved and more things that go into today's auction, maybe compared to the old school auctions.
Yes and no. I would tell you that the magic of 30 days is always what we talk about, from contract signing to auction date. That generally allows us a week of due diligence information gathering in terms of gathering information on the equipment or the real estate that we're selling, and 3 weeks of promotion and further preparation. In today's world with digital marketing the way it is, we can do an auction quicker than that if need be. But generally speaking, 30 days is always a window that we operate in.
When we talked about the changes, registration nowadays, and being able to do online auctions and whatnot, I think the main thing is when you guys, for several of the auctions, it's sometimes a family auction. It could be retirement. It could be an estate auction. It could be several different things. And I think one of the things that you can both speak to is getting to know the families and being able to tell their stories at the auction. That's something that you've been doing since 1960.
You're selling what their history told, and not everybody lived it pretty straight. You had to cover up for some of these guys that were short of paying bills and not telling their banker everything. So you had to do some due diligence, find out if they really were telling me that they didn't have a mortgage when in fact they did. And I was pretty careful. I guess maybe I stumbled once or twice. I don't remember those days.
Yeah.
But you had to do quite a bit more. But you were only working one guy. I was a one-man operation. That's what I was.
Where did you get your start in the auction business?
Well, right here in Cass County. And it was a guy that left home. And he just got tired of being married and left the machinery and everything. So he owed money. So the bank hired me, go out there and gather up all the machinery, clean it up, and have an auction. And the whole deal turned out to be $8,000.
Is that right?
Yep.
So when you say you're a one-man operation, when it comes to differences in clerking these days compared to the old days, did you have to handle that? Did banks handle that? How did that work, Bob?
The banks handled it until auctioneers got tired, because the bank would always say, my fee for doing your auction is the same as the auctioneer charges. Well, he didn't do any selling. We got thinking about it, and we just said, by golly, we're going to organize our own company. And so my wife and I did.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Max, these days, when it comes to clerking and whatnot, you've got an impressive team that takes care of a lot of those things, don't you?
Yeah, growing up hearing some of these stories from Grandpa and Dad, and it's just almost like an alternative universe. And I just chuckle. You did that? What did you do? What? And from topper trucks, you hear stories about Grandpa sitting out in the back of a pickup, essentially. Is that right, Grandpa?
That's right.
Yeah, out in the elements and the registration tables, the bankers would be sitting on a card table in the rain, from what I understand. And in today's world, of course, with the internet bidding, people are bidding from all over the world or entirely online, where the auctioneer isn't even needed anymore. We talk about the mobile clerking and office capabilities that we have with our 3 semi-tractor trailer mobile offices. We've invested in our online website in terms of our marketplace and all those other digital changes with our marketing avenues. It's just totally different worlds. Different worlds.
Yeah. 2-part question for you, Bob. Did you ever imagine that the auctioneering world would be like this today? And part 2 of that question, how proud are you of this next generation for taking your business to that level?
No, I had no idea it would turn out this way. But I learned later on as I progressed, I needed to get out of the way because a lot of the things that I did weren't working for the young generation. For Scott, mainly because he come before you, Max. And I just had to move out of the way, and I turned around and said, well, I'll work for you. And that's how I did it.
So the theme has been then versus now. A lot of new technology in the auction business, new technology in the equipment business and how we farm today. Speaking about agricultural equipment, sometimes, Max and Bob, the oldies are still the goodies. And it seems like in today's auction market, some of those older tractors that are in good shape, we're talking even from the 70s and 80s, it seems like the prices they are bringing at auction these days is very impressive. They've held their value and guys want that kind of equipment. Is that a trend you're seeing, Max?
Oh, absolutely. And we always talk about the utility of used relative to the cost of new. So you have a 400 horsepower tractor from the 90s that can do the same job as a brand new 500 horsepower tractor. The 400 horsepower tractor is brand new and costs over $500,000. It's caused an appreciation in that asset in that tractor, 100%.
Yeah. And it seems like the demand market for those types of tractors is very hot right now. The land market, the trends we've been seeing in land prices. Bob, I mean, phenomenal levels. And Max, you're dealing in an environment today where these are areas, levels that we've never seen before.
I've looked back and said many times to a lot of people, whatever has happened to the land market in Illinois and Iowa is going to happen in the Red River Valley. It's just that we don't know when. And the first farm I bought, I paid $150 for it. Because I wanted to own land. My dad instilled that in me, because if you put it in land, the money won't get away from you. Because you got to make those payments and pay the tax. And appreciation is what the real benefit is. And you see that happening right along. Sometimes it takes a dip. It just, on a graph, it would always show a constant level of rising. And it's going on right now.
Yeah. Max, some of the recent trends that we've seen in land prices, some of the sales we've seen, what are we seeing acres go for now compared to $100, $150?
You talk about trending more towards Iowa, and it seems like on the higher quality of land in the Red River Valley, $10,000 an acre isn't out of the picture right now.
Wow.
And that's from north to south. There's been recent sales. I think we've set some state highs in the Northern Valley, over 12,000 in some of the potato regions of the Northern Valley. So compare it and contrast with the $100 an acre back in 1960. I suppose that was in the 60s?
Yep.
And in the 60s, it's quite an appreciation that's taken place. And you never hear about anybody regretting buying a good quality piece of farmland. And it's such a good store of wealth. And we find that with our client base and our clients and customers, they value land above all else. And they value it more than money. They value it more than tractors.
Yeah.
And it's sacred. And the people that have stuck their neck out purchasing it, and it's always too much money. As Grandpa would say, you got to buy land at next year's prices, but it seems like long term it's a good play. It truly is.
Well, I tell you what, in the time that we do have left, one of the areas where you can certainly help families and clients when we talk about generations, when we talk about then versus now, sometimes maybe kids or grandkids might have land to sell that belong to Grandpa and Grandma and whatnot, and they're deciding what to do with that land. That's a conversation you've probably had many, many times, Max.
Frequently, and we talk about dilution. And sure, the land was never to be sold, but all of a sudden when it's owned 8 ways undivided, and all 8 siblings are in their 60s and 70s, and 5 of the 8 siblings have kids, the writing's on the wall in terms of what needs to take place there and the transition that needs to happen. It's difficult to retain that farm if it's only 320 acres or 160 acres. Larger families that have, I should say, larger holdings are a little bit easier to keep together simply because there's more dollars and cents there in terms of engaging a management company. Having one sibling manage the farm, it makes it a little bit easier, but we're having those conversations daily.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons that being a family-owned business, Bob, you started back in 1960, Scott getting into the operation, Max getting into the operation. I think that's, when it comes to then versus now, that's the message I would like to leave with people that are listening. When it comes to those difficult conversations, sometimes they can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a generational business, just like a lot of folks listening, and knowledge is power. We give a lot of free advice on a daily basis. I'm sure you were saying that back in the 80s too, and 60s, and for what it's worth, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bob, a pleasure to meet you today. Thank you for coming into the studios.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And Max, thank you for your time today too. A great conversation. I look forward to the next time we can all visit.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the video. We put out videos twice a month, so don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you know when our videos come out. If you feel so inclined, leave a comment below if Bob was able to make you smile, or maybe remember something from your past, your first auction, your coldest auction, your hottest auction, or maybe it was something cool that you bought, because we want to know. Don't forget to follow us across all other social media, and if you want any more information about upcoming events, go to our website at steffesgroup.com, and we will see you later.